Good evening and welcome to Sunset News on Thursday, the 21st of December. As always, we bring you the latest news, community, economics, and sports, as well as the weather. You are joined by Ashimberi and Ohone Tlage. How are you, Ohone?
Good, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Ohone is our resident journalist from Namibian Sun, and he's going to be helping me dissect and disseminate the stories, starting off with local politics. The Popular Democratic Movement has dismissed claims that it bought vehicles for its top six leadership for their personal and official use. The party has on 7 December launched its new fleet of vehicles aimed at expanding its footprint through Namibia as it campaigns for the 2024 elections. According to insiders, the party has allocated 6 double cabs GWM vehicles allegedly to the party's vice president Jennifer van den Heever, party treasurer Nico Smith, Linus Tobias, deputy secretary general Manuel Ngaringombe, secretary general, and Ricky Fries, the party's national chairperson. PDM receives over $10 million every year in party funding from the government. That's a lot of money. The party spends more on operations and luxuries than it does on developmental projects. The clinic donated to Grunau is non-operational, the source said. Now, McHenry Venani, PDM leader, however, vehemently denied these claims, saying it's pure fabrication aimed at tarnishing the party image, and that if it was true, he should have been the first to receive a vehicle. He stressed that the party has indeed bought 15 vehicles in addition to the party's existing fleet, and that these will solely be used for the party's political campaign and not for the personal use of party leaders and members. What are your thoughts on this development, Ohone?
These are public funds. Political parties usually, by representation in the National Assembly and the National Council, receive money from the Treasury. One would expect that political parties would put this money towards building their parties and upholding democracy. If it were to be true that they bought vehicles for individuals, it would be very wrong, and it sends out a very negative message, because this is an opposition party. If they bought campaign vehicles, all good and well. But if these vehicles were bought for individuals, it does not send a good message.
And if it is for campaign, what happens to the vehicles after the campaigning, which is something I'm always quite curious about. And, what's to say that there isn't enough vehicles? Is there some kind of accountability? Do they first have to tell us they don't have enough vehicles? Or, once the money is theirs with the Treasury, it's for them to do as they please?
Usually, the financial statements are audited, and they are always published in the press. And if the vehicles are for the party, there's a lot of work that political parties do: advocacy, campaigning. You must also remember that they have projects in communities that they have to fulfill with their constituents. So if the vehicles are bought for that purpose, all good and well. But if it is for individuals, it does not make any sense.
Doesn't make sense at all. Let's head into our next story. Namibia has penned the European Union exclusive partnership agreement despite concerns raised by International Relations Minister Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah that would open its markets to European goods, which could negatively affect local industries and hinder development. Director of the National Planning Commission, Obed Kanjode, this week signed the agreement on behalf of the Namibian government. Acknowledging the agreement, Kanjode said the Namibia enjoyed good relations with the EU. The agreement would be applied in line with the constitution, Kanjode said. The declarations also confirmed that Namibia's understanding is that the Samoa Agreement will be interpreted and implemented in line with and subject to the Namibian constitution, as well as other relevant national laws, regulations, and policies, he added. This thus ensures that Namibia retains her policy space and the signaling of the national constitution as supreme law, irrespective, he added. The EU's ambassador to Namibia, Anna Martins, welcomed the signing of the agreement. The Namibian government in 2021 already brought to the attention of the EU problems it had around the legalities of the partnership and its fears that it contradicts the constitution. The new partnership agreement does not include a provision, clause, or article for reservations. In February 2022, the government notified the EU that the Namibian government would not sign the draft agreement in its current form should the identified concerns not be addressed, Nandi-Ndaitwah explained. What are your thoughts on this, Ohone?
Namibia has consistently and over the years expressed its concerns regarding the EPA agreement signed with the EU. There were always fears that European goods and European services would flood the market at the detriment of local service providers. The other issue is that the agreement in its form would be contradictory to the constitution. Now that Namibia has signed the agreement, it raises questions, and it should go back to the Minister of International Relations, Minister Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, to explain why Namibia signed the agreement and what changed in the meantime.
In spite of her reservations.
Of course.
Of course, and I feel like perhaps that should have been allayed to the public prior to the signing of the agreement.
Of course.
And I guess that would breed a bit of mistrust from the public, because then it feels like some corners may have been cut. Because look, as far as outspoken politicians go, we don't usually put Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah at the forefront of that, which means generally when she does speak out particularly against something, it feels like an outlier and it feels like it is particularly important. And for that to not feel fully addressed is certainly worrying, because look, the Constitution is broad, yes, but it is also specific in parts. But then also as far as business competition goes, those lines can get blurred, because it's possible to play within the rules without playing fair. Something to think about. As we head into the last of our top stories, Ongwediva Town Council electrified 151 households of Sky Phase 3 from Wednesday. The residents of the area said criminals were exploiting Sky Phase 3, and they were increasingly falling prey to thieves and robbers who were taking advantage of the cover of darkness, saying the electrification will help the township a great deal. Philippus Ngidipo, who spoke on behalf of the residents during the handover of electricity, applauded the council, saying they were victims of crime so many times as the robbers would hide easily due to the lack of light in the street. Ngidipo added that they will now be able to conduct business even after the sun has gone down, and those whose businesses needed freezers will now flourish. Ngidipo told Fabian George, who is the chairperson of the management committee, that they will be needing council to bring sewer reticulation in their area. George responded that the issue would be discussed amongst the councillors before a decision could be taken. He assured the residents that their plights have been taken note of and they did not fall on deaf ears. What are your thoughts on this development, Ohone?
The provision of critical services to community is always a welcome development. The issue where electrification or the lack of electrification, one would often see and one would often read in the news that it leads to shack fires. And it's always unfortunate when fire incidences occur, there's a loss of property, there's a loss of life. So wherever service provision is granted, is given by local authorities, it's a welcome development, especially for the residents of Sky Phase 3.
Yeah, and particularly heading into the festive season.
Of course.
Crime generally goes up, but people also want an opportunity to conduct business, be safe with their families.
And it's also a form of decency.
Yes. Yeah, human decency and dignity should be afforded to everyone. Now, Toyota is recalling over 1 million vehicles. We're going to be talking about that in economic news shortly.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Let's get into the economic news. Toyota Motor will recall 1.12 million vehicles worldwide because of a short circuit in a sensor that could cause airbags not to deploy as designed. The recall covers 2020 through 2022 model year vehicles, including various Avalon, Camry, Corolla, RAV4, Lexus, Highlander, Sienna hybrid vehicles, and more, and could result in the occupant classification system sensors not working. working. Now, it includes 1 million vehicles in the United States. The sensors ensure airbags do not deploy if a small adult or child is sitting in the front seat. Dealers will inspect and, if necessary, replace the sensors. Now, the automaker plans to begin notifying owners in February about the recall. Potential interference. Toyota in July 2022 issued a recall of 3,500 RAV4 vehicles in the United States because of potential interference between internal parts that could cause OCS sensor to incorrectly detect the occupant. Now, frontal airbags have saved more than 50,000 lives in the United States over 30 years. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says the new sensors were prompted because older airbags deployed the same way for all drivers and passengers, causing some injuries and in rare cases even death to children, small adults, and unbelted passengers who were too close to the airbag as it deployed, the agency says. Very interesting. Anytime there's a recall in the United States, I always worry. Sometimes, kind of like when the pandemic hit, we're under the impression that we are all fighting the same battle and we all need the same resources, right? But what ended up happening is that there seemed to be tiers of countries that could get access to vaccines. Right. Now, when it comes to things like these recalls, we know that there are a lot, millions of Toyotas in Africa, right? I am always curious about how they address the worldwide situation when it comes to recalls. Because as much as, if you're recalling over 1 million cars in the US and we're talking about airbags, which means that, death could certainly occur. How much attention do they give to, the cars that they've sold, particularly in Africa, especially when you're reading the story and, it's all about United States. And if we're talking a recall between 2020 and 2022, do you think people will be suing?
There's always the possibility of class action following with this type of developments. Vehicle manufacturers the world over, whenever these incidences occur, you would find that notifications are sent out and vehicles are recalled. But one should also bear in mind that these could be vehicles specific to the US market.
Yeah. All right. So they could be specific to the US market, not necessarily sent out worldwide. Something to keep in mind. Us as Africans, we've got to make sure that we're included. Let's get straight into the indicators. All right, let's have a look at what you can expect from the economic indicators. The Namibian dollar trades at 18.26 next to the US dollar. 19.98 gets you a euro. 23.02 means you can get a British pound, and 2.56 is the cost of one Chinese yuan. All commodities seem to be in the green, the largest uptick from copper, plus 0.63%, followed by Brent crude oil, platinum, and gold, respectively. Now, as we know, there is a conflict, a war in Gaza, and a lot of UN motions have been getting tabled, and the latest one to get delayed is the vote for aid. And we're going to be breaking that down as we head into international news after the break. All right, it's time for us to get into international news. A United Nations Security Council vote on a bid to boost aid to the Gaza Strip and ask the UN to monitor humanitarian aid deliveries in the Palestinian enclave has again been delayed at the request of the United States of America, diplomats said yesterday. Currently, Israel monitors the limited humanitarian aid and fuel deliveries to Gaza via the Rafah crossing from Egypt and the Israel-controlled Kerem Shalom crossing. On Wednesday, the first aid convoy entered Gaza directly from Jordan with 750 metric tons of food. Now, the World Food Programme says half of Gaza's population is starving and only 10% of the food required has entered Gaza since the 7th of October. The US has already twice vetoed Security Council action since the attack by Hamas that Israel said killed 1,200 people. Of course, Israel has killed scores more since.
The Security Council has agreed to continue negotiations today to allow for additional time for diplomacy and the presidency will schedule the adoption for tomorrow morning. Okay?
10 a.m.?
No, we don't know that yet. We're going to put it in the morning. Thank you. I already said it.
As penholder, I think the President's comments reflect the consensus of the Security Council discussions in close consultation today. As the penholder, we are aware and are part of very high-level discussions that are happening between capitals to try and reach a text that will in fact be adopted. The overriding objective of this resolution was always to try and positively impact on the ground for the people who need it the most. We have been working overnight, hours, long hours. You have been here covering it, and we appreciate your patience with the Council. But we believe today giving a little bit of space for additional diplomacy could yield positive results, and we are going to be optimists and try and do that. If by tomorrow those results have not been yielded, then we will assess as a Council to proceed at pace to a vote on the resolution for us. Without going into too much detail, because these are Council deliberations, but I think everyone wants to see a resolution that has impact and that is implementable on the ground, and there are some discussions going on about how to make that possible. I believe that capitals that have equities in this file are engaging at the highest level of diplomacy to reach a text that will have impact on the ground. Diplomacy takes time. It means evolving conversations, and people are giving it their attention at the highest levels of the capitals that have leverage on this. So I think from that sense, you have to be optimistic in diplomacy, otherwise we wouldn't all come into this building every day. In that sense, I am optimistic, but in another sense, if this fails, then we will continue to keep trying, because we have to keep trying. There is too much suffering on ground for the Council to continue to fail on this, and we haven't failed. We have a resolution, 2712. We need to build on that resolution, and I hope we will also adopt a humanitarian resolution that responds to the crisis on ground. I think that the UN has one of the most trusted brand names globally. It has credibility and it has experience on the field. So I think the UN is the organization that we have for implementation, and I think countries in the region have come to the UN asking for their support in the face of this crisis.
All right, so yet again, the US stops aid that's meant for Gaza. Just about a week ago, ceasefire vote, United States vetoes it when most of the world says ceasefire. So if I'm to get it correctly, according to the United States, Israel should not stop bombing Palestine, the Gaza Strip, and those Palestinians should not get food aid. I'm just thinking in layman's terms, how far off am I?
This is a humanitarian crisis. This is something that needs to be stopped. The loss of life is regrettable. The actions of the United States as the leader of the free world is really something that is disappointing. It should not be a time for picking sides. It should be a time for looking for a peaceful agreement. Looking at the issue of the two-state solution, there are pros and cons to it, and there are varying opinions to whether the two countries can coexist. But for the now and the here, there's a ceasefire that is necessary, and food aid should be deployed to civilians who are not part of the problem and who are innocent in all of this.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a reasonable decision to come to, especially considering the world. I hesitate and I quite frankly reject the idea of the United States being the leader of the free world. Their former president led an insurrection into their parliament. So free is not necessarily how I think about the United States. But I do think about certain facts, which I feel like, shed some light. United States sent over $15 billion in arms to Israel. We're talking about this happening within the last year. So within the last couple of years, rather. So there's also that investment. The money aspect, which seems to always kind of draw the United States. But now locally, politically, for Joe Biden, Israel might actually be the fork in the road for his election. That might be the reason he does not get elected again, because within the Democrats themselves, they are seeing the situation as most of the world is. And it's starting to be hard to pinpoint the United States' intentions, particularly when they veto a call for ceasefire and also have an issue with aid going to Gaza. We wonder what your thoughts are. Do let us know on our social media. But as far as international news, that's what we have. Weather up next. You're still with Sunset News. As promised, let's get into the weather predictions. Looking at the capital city, Windhoek, along with Omaruru and Hobabis, you can expect partly cloudy conditions. However, the rains are blessing Oshuarongo, Tsumeb, Katima, Rundu, Enana, Oshakati, and Ruakana. Enana expecting it to be a little hot, along with Omaruru, which has a 38 degrees Celsius maximum. Henties Bay, Swakopmund, Walvish Bay, sitting on a 15 degrees Celsius minimum. That's expected. Partly cloudy conditions in Oraniemund. The hottest in the country is Keetmanshoop, sunny with a 40 degrees Celsius maximum. Those have been our weather predictions. Let's head to the sport after the break.
We've always had the bravery to stand up for what is Namibian. From protecting our homes to fighting injustices, we still celebrate what it means to us and raise a glass to those who show their bravery. No matter how they take on the world, with all this potential in the land of the brave, what will you do to make this Namibia your Namibia?
Welcome to Sport Wrap for Sunset News. We start off our stories in the world of Namibian hockey. Kiana Shea Cormack scored 3 goals for Namibia, and team captain Gillian Hermanus won as they once again stunned the previously unbeaten South African women's team 4-2 in the final of the Nkosi Cup indoor hockey tournament in Cape Town. Now, Namibia led 2-1 after the first chukka, a score that remained unchanged until half-time. Now, Cormack completes the tournament as the overall top goal scorer on 12, comfortably ahead of next best Edith Molikowe of South Africa with 5. A sublime performance of accuracy and execution by host South Africa sees their men's team rack up a 10-2 win against Namibia. That was in the final of the Nkosi Cup in Cape Town. Now, this was with both teams qualifying for the next World Cup. South Africa found the reaction that they were looking for after Namibia had beaten them 5-2, and this was in the pool match just 2 days before. The South Africans also took revenge for Namibia's triumph against them in the final of a Six-Nation tournament in Malaysia last month. Abdullah Idris 3 and Mustafa Kassiem 2 were among the sharpest in attack for the hosts, who led 5-0 before Namibia eventually found a reply through 2 goals by birthday boy Liam Hermanus. All right, we move over to some football. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp said he was unhappy with the home support during their 5-1 League Cup win over West Ham United, and he urged fans to give their tickets away if they are not in the right shape for the visit of Arsenal at the weekend. Liverpool had missed the chance to go top of the league on Sunday after a 0-0 draw with Manchester United, but they blew away West Ham to book a record 19th appearance in the Cup semis on Wednesday. Despite Liverpool's dominance, Klopp thought that the atmosphere was lacking at Anfield. It's long ago that I said this, but I thought that the first half a little bit, when the boys played really exceptional, I was not overly happy with the atmosphere that was behind me, Klopp told reporters. We changed a lot of things. We dominated West Ham like crazy. We missed chances. And I mean, if I would be in the stand, I would be on my toes 1000%. Liverpool partly opened their newly revamped Anfield Road stand for the first time on Sunday, bumping up attendance to 57,000, the largest for 50 years at their stadium. With leaders Arsenal set to visit on Saturday, Klopp said getting the right atmosphere is crucial. And in the last of our stories, Zimbabwe coach Dave Houghton has confirmed his resignation with immediate effect, citing a breakdown in his relationship with the cricket players following the team's failure to qualify for the 2024-2020 World Cup, where they lost to Namibia and Uganda. Zimbabwe Cricket made the announcement on Wednesday, but said Houghton, regarded as one of the country's most accomplished former players, would remain within the organization. in as yet an unspecified role. In a resignation letter to ZC board, Horton said he had lost the change room after 18 months in charge and felt that a new voice was needed to take the team forward. While the past few months have been disappointing, as we failed to qualify for both the 50 over World Cup and the T20 World Cup, they should not obscure all the work he has done over the past year in order to rebuild the foundations for long-term success, ZC Chairman Tavengwa Mokolani said in a statement. Dave leaves the team with our sincerest thanks for his tireless efforts, and we are looking forward to working with him in a different role as we seek to change our on-field fortunes. Now, an interim technical team will be named shortly for Zimbabwe's tour to Sri Lanka in January for a white ball series. Those have been our sports stories. All right, that brings us to the end of Sunset News from Ohono Hlage and Ashwin Mberi. Don't end your day without us.